Welcome to Bike Life, a podcast from the Warmshowers Foundation. Here, we celebrate our global community of touring cyclists and hosts who make life on the road unforgettable. Through stories, insights, and shared experiences, we explore the connections that fuel every journey. Whether you're pedaling across countries or welcoming travelers into your home, you're part of a movement rooted in generosity and adventure. Discover more and join the community at Warmshowers.org. Now, let's hit the road together. Hey everyone, this is Jerry Kopak, the host of Bike Life, coming to you from the Rocky Mountains of Breckenridge, Colorado. Spring is finally in the air, and even though there's still about 3 feet of snow in my backyard, that's about a meter for all you metric system folks, I'm still really excited to talk about bikes. Now, today's guest calls herself a global hobo and goes by the online handle hels on wheels. Now, last check, Helen Dainty has traveled through 90 countries and has been living a life on the road in one form or another since 2004. Let that sink in. Today, she's going to share some stories about long-distance bicycle travel and also what life on the road looks like. Hey, Helen, welcome to Bike Life.
G'day, how are you?
Good day. So now, did I get that right? Did you begin global hoboing? And by the way, I love that term, back in 2004?
I did, yeah. I set out on my, what should have been a round the world trip, pretty standard British thing. I thought I would just return home, get a job, get a house, get a marriage like everybody else. But something happened, a switch flipped, you might say, and during that year, and I decided that actually traveling is how I wanted to spend my time instead of the more conventional life path.
Now, you mentioned you're from the UK, but did I detect a little twinge of an Aussie accent in there?
Yeah, part of those years, 10 of those years, were living in Australia, and my job in Australia was travel also. So even when I was working there, I was still living out of a backpack, flying all across the country week by week.
Okay, so you haven't always been a cyclist though, right? So how did you get into bicycle touring?
So I was living in Australia. I was working for a couple of years and then traveling and then working for a couple of years. But I was applying for citizenship, so I couldn't leave the country. I'd already used up all of my overseas allowance during the application. So I was ready to start traveling again, but couldn't leave Australia. And I'd already driven around in a camper van, but my camper van couldn't go down the very dirt roads, the very, rutted, corrugated stuff. So I began wondering how I might do that on a budget. Four-wheel drive was out, and I wondered if I could cycle those roads to go and see the things that my camper van would take me to. And I found a really cool website about cycling the Outback roads in Australia, and began plotting a route around the country, an alternate route around the country down the dirt roads.
How was cycling in Australia?
It's not the ideal place to begin bicycle touring, but it's fantastic. I wouldn't recommend it as a starting point, but it was amazing. It was incredible.
How come?
The scenery, the self-sufficiency. It was a baptism of fire. Is that the term?
Yeah.
But it was incredible for my own personal growth, the things that I had to accomplish and that I did accomplish. And it was hard. It was literal blood, sweat and tears, but I got through it. And unfortunately, I loved it. I bought a really nice bike for this 1 year trip. But I immediately fell in love with bicycle touring. And that's the only way I've traveled since for the last 8 years now.
So you fell in love with bicycle touring, even though it wasn't an ideal situation, i.e. blood, sweat, and tears. How do you fall in love after that kind of a description?
Good question. I think it's just the absolute autonomy of having your own transport, your tent on the back. Even though it was tough, you are entirely in charge. You have complete control about where you go, when you go, how you go. As opposed to bus timetables and schedules and routing. I just felt an utter sense of freedom, even though it was tough going.
Yeah, I can totally relate to that. From Australia, this kind of whet your appetite. Where did you go from there?
From there, I was due at a friend's wedding in Italy. So I flew over to the UK, and then I had some time. So I cycled around the coast of England, Scotland, and Wales, and then cycled to the wedding in Italy, and continued from there around Europe a couple of times until COVID, I guess.
What about the Lake District? Any time up there?
Yeah, actually, that's where I was born.
Okay.
I passed back through there on that trip back in 2018, whatever that was.
Because that's probably some pretty spectacular cycling through there, right?
It is. It's a surprisingly small part of the country. You can cycle through it in a day if you're on a mission. But yeah, it's absolutely stunning.
Well, I mean, compared to the outback of Australia, right? Anything is kind of small.
Yeah, and that was part of my problem actually. When I was planning my route around the UK, I thought I would do the same distances as I was doing in Australia. I'd been out of the UK for a long time and I'd forgotten what it looked like. So I was planning these 100-kilometer days, 6 days a week, and very quickly, the coast in Cornwall and Wales, like it's just constant up and down, like down into a little, village and then straight back up the other side, like 15% gradients.
Oof.
So I very quickly had to revise. My schedule was ridiculous. I thought I'd be going to Ireland in that time as well. I had to drop Ireland from the itinerary altogether. There just wasn't time for the same kilometers as I was used to doing in Australia to do in Britain.
Just relentless grinding climbs, right?
Yeah, beautiful ones, but again, relentless. Yeah.
So was there ever a turning point where this went from being a trip to just, this is my life?
I think my first trip in Australia was 2016, and then I think I thought that was going to be it. But then a friend convinced me to return to work for a year, which I did. And then when I started out again in 2018, that was me. Okay, this is what I do now. I'd worked out that if I live on this absolute micro budget of 100 Australian dollars, which is about 56 euros right now a week. I worked out if I could live on that, I could sustain myself for a few years on the savings that I had. So that was the beginning of it, I guess.
So speaking of 100 Aussie dollars a week, do you have any kind of insider hacks that you've learned along the way to make that sustainable?
Well, the Warmshowers community is instrumental in that, and wild camping. Those two things, like wild camping and warm showers, they go so perfectly together because in areas of high population, you have a very good chance of finding a host. And it's also a terrible place to wild camp in high population. And then alternatively, in the low population areas, excellent, safe, beautiful wild camping and, not so many hosts. So the two work absolutely perfectly together. So accommodation obviously is the biggest cost for most people. So that vastly reduces that. I'm in a hostel now, as you might be able to hear. But that's a lovely treat for me because I'm in Barcelona. So I've splashed out on a hostel for a few days. But usually it's warm showers and wild camping all the way.
Got it. So I think there are probably a lot of people who would think that traveling and riding a bike every day sounds amazing. And I'm sure there is. But there's probably also really tough times, right? It isn't all rainbows and unicorns every day. So what are some of the things that you might struggle with?
Actually, a lot of my time these days is spent on social media as I try and fund my way around the world now. From the outset, when people look at my social media, it might look lovely and chill the whole time, but actually I spend hours shooting footage, editing footage, uploading stuff on slow Wi-Fi. So that and finding reliable Wi-Fi, all very tedious things can become quite stressful, and that eats into a lot of my lovely riding a bike and camping in nature time.
Yeah, because I was going to ask anything you miss about, that conventional lifestyle, i.e. working in a cubicle and paying rent or a mortgage. But it sounds like this is a sort of a nice sort of counterbalance to sort of like the less desirable things.
Yeah, it's sort of an inverse. Like if I spend most of my time doing what most people would reasonably refer to as a holiday, and then I spend a few weeks a year, my downtime looks a lot more like people's regular time of just, staying in one place, loading the dishwasher, doing things that I don't conventionally do. That is a holiday for my my standard life,
Got it.
being
How do,
domestic.
do you ever experience travel fatigue? Like you just kind of like you're in Barcelona now. Do you ever just want to
Yeah.
get to a place like I'm tired of riding my bike? I'm tired of being on the go every day. I just want to kind of settle down. Like do you experience that?
Settle down, no. Have a little time off from like editing YouTube vlogs, yeah. But absolutely settle down, no, absolutely not.
Sorry, I don't mean settle down. I just mean like, take some time off the bike instead of, again,
Yeah.
looking for a new place to sleep every night.
Oh, totally, yeah. But I've been quite lucky in the last few years. I've had family visits, so it's been nice to stay in a hotel with either one of my parents, or my brother and his wife came out to visit, and so that's really nice to stay in one place and to not worry about where you're going to pitch your tent that night. Yeah.
So you do have friends, family who you can plan to get together with along the way.
Yeah. My family enjoy traveling, and I think they enjoy the opportunity to come and visit some far-flung places while I'm passing through. So yeah, that's been really nice. I also try and get home every year or three, but it's nice when they can come out and visit me as well.
So home Lake District area?
These days they're in the West Midlands in a town called Newdley.
Gotcha. Okay. Now, are you familiar with the term type 2 fun?
Yes.
So type 1 fun is, as I'm having a good time now. Type 2 fun is like, this is pretty miserable, but you look back on the end of the day, end of the week, whatever. It's like, oh, remember that time I did that thing? Like, that was pretty cool.
Yeah.
How do you deal with those type 2 days where like maybe this long slog through the Outback or grinding up relentless hills? Like, is there a way that you pass your time?
Yeah, I listen to a lot of podcasts as I ride. And I know on days where I've been, slogging through the Outback, or I remember the forests in Finland, just a dead straight road, dead flat. So you had no view at all except for the road just disappearing into the infinite distance. And the only punctuation in the day was seeing the sign to Rovaniemi, whatever it is. But it would go like 90 kilometers, 80 kilometers. That was the only punctuation in my day, like for 100-kilometer day. So sometimes I chat away to myself and I give myself some encouragement. I remember pulling into one Outback rest area just on a corrugated, awful sand road. And I was really sort of like talking myself in, like, you can do it. You got this, you got this. And I was talking to myself out loud. I remember I hadn't seen anybody in a couple of days. And I pulled into this like remote rest area, and I found 4, we call them grey nomads in Australia, older people with like a motorhome. And they were just sitting around their little plastic fold-out table with their little plastic glasses of bubbly as this dirty, sweaty, talking to herself cyclist pulled in, chatting to herself. And just crashed into their little dinner party. They invited me for dinner. That was really nice. But yeah, sometimes the like talking out loud and motivating myself in is what keeps me going. Oh, I'm promising myself something nice, a nice bar of chocolate, a nice cold beer.
Yeah.
Doing the sort of negotiating with myself that you can have a treat at the end, you can have a reward, but you need to keep going right now.
Do you know the term type 3 fun?
No, is that fun that's never fun?
It's fun that's never going to be fun, no matter how long it takes me to look back on it. Like, this is the worst thing I've ever done. I hope I never do this again. Have you ever had any of those?
But it's still fun for the other people that hear about it when you tell the story.
Yeah, but for you, it's like,
yourself.
This is the worst hell I can think of. So I'll give an example. For me, I was in Pakistan recently. Pakistan was
amazing.
But I had to take a 17-hour overnight bus from the mountains back to Islamabad. And 17 hours is a long time. And I had planned to queue up some audiobooks, some podcasts, do some reading. Within like the first half hour, because the roads are so windy and rough through the mountains, everybody on the bus was nauseous, getting sick, vomiting. The guy behind me had COVID, which means 3 days later, I had COVID. So nothing redeeming about that trip at all. Do you have anything that's like, wow, this was the worst?
No.
Okay, good.
So. I don't, nothing that springs to mind. I'm infinitely grateful. Maybe not at the time, but once I'm out of it, I am infinitely grateful for everything I've been able to experience. I realized that even the most miserable days, and I have to be careful about this on social media because we must all try and be truthful on social media and not paint, fake images. But at the same time, I do have to be careful because when I do complain about a tough day, people will gently remind me that I am still enjoying an experience that they would dream of while they sit in their cubicle. So I do try to be very conscious that even my worst days are still the stuff of people's dreams as they're doing their 9 to 5 or whatever it might be. So no absolute regrets. Just sort
Good.
of part of the rich tapestry, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong. It's nothing to aspire to. You're not looking for type 3 fun, but it's good that you haven't had anything that's been that dreadful. So that's good. And I'm glad that you have that understanding that, you're living a pretty good life, it sounds like. So, and you have to sort of keep that in perspective on the socials, right?
Yeah. Sometimes I forget temporarily, but only ever temporarily. And
Well, so I want to kind of go back to where you are. You're in Barcelona right now, but you were in Andorra previously, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So the funny thing is, my first ever bicycle tour was that same route, but in reverse 20 years ago, 2005.
Oh, cool.
So I started in Barcelona, cycled on a $50 bike that I got used up into the mountains of Andorra, and it was amazing. The only challenge that I had in Spain was the food. Like the people, when I say food, I don't mean the food was bad. It's just the food timing. And so I was traveling hostel to hostel, pension to pension, and I would try to be on the road by 6:30 or 7 in the morning, which no one's awake because they have dinner at 10 o'clock. I would finish at 5. And of course, they don't have dinner till 10 o'clock. So that was a bit of an adjustment. But other than that, I thought Spain was amazing. So what's been your take on Spain thus far?
Yeah, I haven't really, I'm just really 2 days from the border into Barcelona. So,
Fast.
and obviously, well, it's downhill mostly, but it's difficult to judge a country by a big city like Barcelona. So I've really only had 2 days in the country, but yes, in the afternoon, the shops weren't open. One of those days was Easter Sunday. So I knew in advance not to expect to buy anything that day. So I just stocked up on like a lot of portable carbs the day before. But I am also conscious if I do get to stay with some Warmshowers hosts as I progress south in Spain, it's been on my mind about dinner time, will I excuse myself to go to bed while they go and have some dinner, or what will happen? Or I haven't really worked that out yet. I'm still too fresh in the country.
Gotcha. So I've been looking at some of your Instagram videos, and I noticed that in some of them you use the phrase "inshallah," which means God willing. And I've used that a fair bit when I've traveled through Muslim countries, and I kind of like it. Now, I know that you're heading to Algeria next week, which is, again, a largely Muslim-based country. Have you been to other Muslim-based countries, and how has your experiences been?
It's been phenomenal. Yeah, I've traveled in, loads of Muslim countries: Turkey, Iran, Palestine, Oman, Saudi Arabia, Jordan, the Emirates, Qatar, Bahrain, and it's been overwhelmingly really, really positive experience. I had the traffic police followed me in Saudi Arabia because they wanted to make sure I was like super duper safe, even though they'll readily tell you it's the safest place to be. They also want to make sure that I'm extra super duper safe. Tunisia also, I had traffic police escort me. But I found hospitality to be phenomenal, especially in the Gulf Arab countries. Really, really recommend it, especially for solo women in the Gulf Arab countries. Really, really, I felt completely safe.
Yeah, I was going to say, you were in Saudi Arabia. From what I understand, is not a very common place for a solo woman to cycle, but it sounds like everything was wonderful.
They only started issuing tourist visas in the last 5 or 6 years. And then if you discount a couple of COVID years from that, tourism is still pretty new in Saudi Arabia, but cyclists are discovering it very quickly. And I bumped into a few cyclists actually in Saudi. There's only really one sensible road across the country, so inevitably you will sort of run into each other. But it's increasingly becoming a popular destination for cyclists.
Was it easy to make it across some of those large expanses of desert?
Yeah, there's a highway with a very wide shoulder, like almost an entire lane that's So you can cycle very safely in that. The drivers aren't the best in the world, but the shoulder is massive. The problem is the cities, because to get from city block to city block, you have to effectively join the motorway to cross over the other motorway to get into the next city block. So that's the most dangerous part of cycling in Saudi. The distances in the desert are fine. About every 100 kilometers, you have like a roadside service station, as you would expect on a motorway in North America or Europe, where you've got, food. There's a mosque. I would often sleep in the women's section of the mosque. You can fill up your water bottles, obviously. So every sort of 100 kilometers, you've got that sort of, place that you can stop and refill everything.
Interesting. So I've had friends who have been in Iran, and they have talked about just the legendary kindness and hospitality of the people.
Mind blowing.
And I've always wanted to go, but as an American passport holder, it hasn't really been in the cards for me.
Yeah.
My friends had talked about, like, they were there for a month and they didn't pay for a meal or a night stay the entire time. Did you have a kind of a similar experience?
Yeah, Iran is phenomenal for that. Absolutely phenomenal. The legends are entirely true that people are astoundingly generous. They do have a thing as well called taros, which is also British people have this as well, which is where you offer something and you don't really mean to offer it. It's just a sort of politeness.
I've heard that.
So you do, you have to learn to differentiate between what's actually being offered to you for free or somebody or tar off when they say no, don't worry about it, but you still should pay in a shop if you bought something in a shop and they try and give it you for free. It's probably not supposed to be for free. You probably should try and persist at least a couple of times. If after the third time they still won't take your money, then it's probably okay not to pay. But Iranian hospitality it's very difficult to imagine anywhere else in the world that is as incredibly hospitable.
Well, fingers crossed that I get the opportunity, because it's been on my list for a number of years.
I hope you do. Yeah, I'm very lucky. As an Australian passport holder, I was able to go, but I still had to sort of be a little bit quiet about my British citizenship, and also that I've done work in the past for organisations like Amnesty International, and that I have my background is a political degree. So all of those things can land you in trouble. There's a couple of British motorcyclists that have been detained in Iran right now. So it's no joke. You have to be very careful. But that's the government. People are an entirely different thing.
Yeah, that's been my experience too. That every place I've traveled to, people have been kind and generous, and it's just some political stuff that goes on that makes you just be a little more cautious. So,
yeah, totally.
How did you arrive at Algeria? Has that been on your hit list for a while?
Yeah, not really.
Okay.
What happened was I was in Saudi Arabia when the war began in Sudan. I was supposed to be going down the eastern side of Africa, but I kept going in the direction of Sudan towards Egypt in the hope things would turn around. Obviously, they didn't. So going down the east of Africa has become a no-go right now, at least without flying over Sudan.
Yeah.
So I took another look at the map and I thought, okay, well, if I can't go to that part of Africa, I saw Tunisia, Algeria, and Morocco all in the line. And I thought, oh, that looks okay, I'll do that. But what I didn't understand at the time was, first of all, Algeria and Morocco, that border is just utterly sealed. They do not talk to each other. So that's a no-go. Tunisia to Algeria, Algeria there's no e-visa, and they require that you get your visa for Algeria in your home country. You can't get it in Tunisia, for example. So I guess maybe I was going home anyway. I don't know. But I went home for Christmas, applied for the visa, turned around, and now I'm on my way back to Algeria now. So yeah, I guess I got onto the idea of visiting Algeria when I was kind of stuck in Egypt, not able to kind of go further that way. But it took going back to the UK last year to get the visa to make it possible to go this year.
So do you have a plan for Africa? Because as you know, Africa is big. You could spend years in Africa.
Yeah, so next year, the idea is after I've worked my way back from Algeria, I'll come back through the ex-Yugoslavian countries there's a few of those I haven't visited. And then I'll have another Brexit holiday for 3 months in the UK, and then when I'm allowed back into Schengen Europe again, I'll get the ferry down to Spain and Portugal early next year, and then from there I'll begin working my way down the west coast of Africa, starting in Morocco.
Gotcha. Okay. And have you been to Morocco before?
I've been to Morocco, yeah, but only to the coast. I haven't been in the mountains. I hear the cycling in the mountains is amazing.
I have. I've been to the High Atlas, and it's spectacular.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Keen for that.
Yeah. If you don't mind, I want to kind of break things up a little bit and maybe do a little rapid fire travel questions. What do you think?
Sure.
So apologies in advance. I realize this is a very cliche question because I know that every place is a little bit different, a little bit unique. But do you have a favorite place that you've been? Maybe a place that you'd like to go back to?
It has to be Iran.
Iran.
Iran has to top it. It's not without its problems. Some young men on motorbikes do not know how to behave themselves, and the government, obviously. But despite those things, Iran is so incredibly brilliant in all other aspects. It still eclipses the downside. So Iran remains my favorite.
Good. So just further cementing my need to somehow make it there at some point.
Sorry.
How about this? Do you have a list of places that they're still on your hit list? Like, what's really high on your place that you want to go?
Pakistan
Yeah.
is my new. Since I met some Pakistani people, actually quite a few Pakistanis in Iran, and also I stayed with a lovely Pakistani couple in Bahrain, and they got me really into the idea of cycling in Pakistan. So that's my new big wish, although it's not on my current itinerary. I don't know how I'm going to work that in. It's obviously not on the way to West Africa. But yeah, Pakistan is my next big dream.
The north is amazing. The Gilgit-Baltistan region, the Hunza Valley, spectacular. And of course, the Karakoram Highway is pretty cool too.
Of course.
So a little bit deeper here. Do you have a favorite kind of landscape? Or is it desert, mountain passes, coastal ranges?
I don't think so. I love the desert. I love the coast. I love the mountains. Yeah, I'm not particular. I probably could pass on the jungle.
Okay.
Forests. Not so much on forests, especially the Finland ones where there's nothing to see apart from 2 meters either side of you.
Yeah, sure.
But otherwise, no, I'm not picky. I love it all.
Do you have a favorite food country where you thought the food was just you could have eaten yourself into a coma? Iran?
It's Iran again. Yeah, sorry.
Have you been to India?
Yes, not by bicycle, but a long time ago. Yeah, also great food. Yeah.
Okay. What about Thailand and the street food?
Amazing. Yeah,
amazing.
Rice and mango, love it. Yeah.
And Iran is still better.
Iran tops the lot. It's amazing.
Yeah, got it. So this is probably going to be another softball question. So favorite culture?
Favorite culture?
Yeah, just the people, like how the people interact, the culture of it.
Yeah, maybe like the Gulf Arab countries. It's a lot of different countries, so I probably shouldn't conflate the culture into one. But my experience of traveling there as a woman is so lovely. I often got directed as a woman. I skipped the queues, or I had my whole, separate entrance to whatever embassy I was visiting. In supermarkets, nobody tried to squeeze past you. Like, you're given loads of space. Yeah. Men step off the pavement to let you pass, as opposed to, I know, in some Western cities, you're like shoulder bumping people. No, it's like you have a force field around you, so you can feel completely safe as a woman there. So I really enjoy that.
Awesome. Was there a place that was particularly challenging to you for one reason or another?
Challenging. I mean, everywhere has different challenges, I guess.
Yeah. Okay, that's fine. I didn't know if there's some place that was like culturally challenging or logistically challenging, or I don't know.
Nothing that, I mean, I love being in a different country and learning. Everything starts all over again. When I left France, I'm pretty experienced in traveling in France. I know which banks have the good Wi-Fi. I know which supermarkets are cheaper and have the good Wi-Fi. I got the hang of France. And then when you arrive in Andorra and you have to work out, I couldn't work out where to buy bread. and I didn't know where to find Wi-Fi. And just being in a new country for the first couple of days, and everything is new again, and you have to start learning all over again. Where do I do this? Which ATM will accept my card? Like the first couple of days in any place are the difficult bit for me. There's no country that's inherently difficult. It's the arriving in a new place that's difficult.
So do you like that sort of overland border crossing as opposed to, say, like flying in?
Oh, I love it. I almost never fly unless, I mean, with the bicycle, that's not true. I flew a lot in the past, but what I mean is I hate flying with the bike, and I will do almost 10 things to avoid flying with the bike. And so I love going by land and, by boat and by train, but also just going the slowness of a bicycle. Everything changes, incrementally, slowly, the food, the language, the food, the language, everything sort of the countryside, it starts morphing into the next country. It's not where the arbitrary line is on the map. Everything changes very gradually. And that's one of the lovely things about cycling, of course.
Yeah. Was there a country that you thought like, wow, I really don't want to leave? Or if I was going to settle down, like I could probably hang out here for a while.
There's no country like this. I have such itchy feet. There's so much more I want to see. Like I have, one of those like digital scratch maps, and there's so many countries that I hope I can step foot in as many countries as I possibly can. So right now, rather than return to a place or settle in a place, I want to see so much more. I want to experience so much more, different cultures, different lands and foods. I want to visit the new stuff before I return.
Got it. How about this? Do you carry any luxury items? Like for me, for example, I'm a bald guy. I will carry electric hair clippers because I know that people get their hair cut all places in the world, but I like to have that so I can just sort of, I don't know, take a shower and clean myself up every couple of days. Do you have anything like that that's like maybe a little extra that you don't need, but you want to have it with you?
I don't use my stove for cooking. It's really only for coffee. So I don't know if people would call that a luxury. I don't think I carry many luxury items. No, it's still like I have a sort of rule that each thing has to have a dual purpose.
Okay.
So, for example, my towel is for drying me, but also is like an additional, layer beneath my mattress and the ground sheet. So, everything is multi-purpose, else it doesn't earn a place in the pannier. So I don't think I have. I mean, it depends on what you constitute luxury. AirPods, are they luxury?
No. I'm talking about like hair clippers, or like we had talked before about like an espresso machine, like just some stuff that's like a little egregious.
Nothing that comes to mind.
Okay, well, let's back it up then. So you've been traveling for a while. When you first started traveling, were there things that you quickly realized that you just don't need anymore?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. What's that?
I mean, every cyclist sets off with probably 10 kilos too much to begin with, right?
Yeah.
And I've whittled it down as time has gone by, and now it's a pretty streamlined approach now. It helps that I'm not really traveling through winter on this trip. I sort of set out into the late winter, early spring, heading south. So I don't have a lot of like winter clothes with me. I have to have some sort of Islamic friendly clothing, but nothing really, no heavy duty warm stuff really. So I'm traveling pretty light right now.
Okay, that must feel nice, right? Go a little bit lighter, a little bit faster.
Yeah, very nice.
So do you have a favorite quote or a mantra that sort of moves you along or keeps you going forward?
Yeah, I can't quote it to you right now, but I just reread one by Derbla Murphy, who wrote Full Tilt, about cycling from Ireland to India. And it's basically around, how we have to sort of, I can't even begin to repeat it, but it's about experiencing everything, having to, sleep rough, and experience every challenge instead of just being like comfy and at home. And also Bill Bryson had some nice things to say about, about how being completely lost in a brand new country as well.
Yeah, I get that. I've read a lot of his books.
Yeah.
You want to hear what my favorite quote is?
Yes, please.
So you're familiar with ice cream, I'm guessing Ben and Jerry's,
Yeah.
the American company, and so their motto is, "If it's not fun, why do it?"
Okay. Yeah.
And it's
Nice.
and it's very simple. So I've applied that whenever I'm on a bike tour. If I get to a stretch of road, like, wow, this is not fun. I don't want to do this anymore. And so
Mm.
I kind of approach that with bicycle touring and life as well. And I realize that can sometimes be a very privileged perspective, but life is really short. And I
Mm.
believe in trying to do things that make us happy. And so that's the one that kind of always sticks with me.
Yeah. Makes
So
sense.
so speaking of, I like to ask this question to a lot of my guests, especially people like yourself who've been on the road for a long period of time. Now, inevitably, with a trip of any length, especially one of long distance, things eventually go wrong, things they didn't plan for. Was there ever a time that you can think of where you thought, like, wow, how am I going to get myself out of this one?
Yes. Most recently, my beloved roll off, which has done 85,000 kilometers,
Mm,
the casing, a couple of spokes broke away from the casing. Um, and that was in South Italy. And fortunately, there was a Warmshowers host who also was simultaneously looking for a workaway person. So I was able to, thank goodness, because at the time, I mean, I didn't know what I was about to do with myself. But yeah, thanks to them, I was able to send the roll off away to roll off. They were able to put my gearing into a brand new casing and then get that back to me. But yeah, that was Warm Showers to the rescue on that one. And then I remember my first big problem was in Australia. I was trying to cycle it's called the Mawson Trail. And it's an outback trail in South Australia, but it was a particularly wet spring that I was trying to ride this, and it's clay in that region, and
oof.
it was just downpour after, and it was just, I couldn't cycle, I couldn't even stand up. It was like an ice rink. So I could see the bitumen road, like I don't know, half a kilometre or a kilometre away. So I just thought I'm gonna abort this idea of doing the Mawson Trail right now. It's inconceivable. So I'll just cross country it to the roads that I can see the vehicles on. But what I didn't understand, and I still don't understand now, but there was like a barbed wire fence, and so I had to like hoof all of my panniers and my bike, which is like a 20-kilo bike, like, and I'm not very upper body strong. I had to get all of this stuff over. I think I tried to go underneath. Anyway, slipping and sliding on this mud, and then I pushed on towards the road, only to find another barbed wire fence. I couldn't believe it.
Oh
So I had to
gosh.
do the whole thing all over again. The barbed wire pinged back and like cut my face. But at some point in this whole thing, like I remember sinking into the ground, and I think I might have started to cry. But then again, I had a word with myself. I was like, look, you like you can have a cry in a minute, but like you just get to the road first, and then you can have a meltdown. So I kept going, and then a third. Why would there be three parallel barbed wire fences? I don't understand what that was about. But again, I had to I push everything underneath the lower part of the barbed wire, heap everything over the top of the top piece of the barbed wire, until finally I got to the road. But yeah, at the time it just felt insurmountable. I didn't. If somebody else had been with me, I probably just would have laid down in the mud and waited for somebody else to resolve it for me. But when you're all alone, you have to call on your own resources, and you have to solve these problems yourself. Things that on paper you think you could never do, but when you are literally all alone, there is no other alternative but to do it. Then you must do it.
I mean, think
So
about
yeah,
think about that resilience that you develop, because you're right. Like, what's going to happen if I stop? There's no one who's going to come out here and
yeah,
help you. No one you're not going to
yeah,
get rescued. Like, you have one
yeah,
choice. Like the second barbed
exactly.
wire fence, the third barbed wire fence. Like, you just keep going. It sounds like someone was trying to deter hobo bike travelers or something like that by putting three barbed wire fences there.
Maybe so. They should have put a fourth one because it didn't work.
So speaking of, there's a lot of people who are going to listen to this show who maybe have had ambitions about setting off on an adventure like this, maybe hesitant to take this kind of a leap. Any advice you might want to send out to people who might be curious about their own exploration?
Maybe don't start in Australia with your big bike touring adventure.
Noted.
But a few people have asked me recently for advice about, budget travel, and aside of, wild camping and a warm shower subscription, then I think it's quite easy to travel on a budget if you're willing to eat from supermarkets and bakeries. I've just spent 3 days in Barcelona without spending any entrance money. Like, there is so much to do for free. You can go. There's so many places you can visit inside of for free and not pay a single entrance fee. Like, if I was here for more than a few days, maybe I would start paying for stuff. But you can pack your time with just visiting the free stuff. So you can travel on an exceedingly small budget if you're willing to camp and eat from supermarkets and visit the free stuff.
Excellent. Last question, and this is an easy one. Is there an end goal? Are you just going to keep going until it isn't fun?
I keep going, see as much as I can for as long as I can.
No end goals, no plans of going back to normal life.
No, this is my normal life.
Yeah, good answer. All right, Helen. So I know you're off to Algeria next week. I know you got a lot of stuff to plan, but how can our listeners follow along with you, maybe support you along in your adventures?
My Instagram is at hels.on.wheels with one L in hels. YouTube is also Hels on Wheels. My Patreon is Hels on Wheels. Everything's Hels on Wheels, one L in hels.
Easy. And we will have all that listed in our show notes. So if people who didn't catch it on the verbal, they can catch it on the visual. So thank you again. And I want to thank all of our listeners who enjoyed our conversation today with Helen Dainty, a.k.a. Hels on Wheels. Now, if you enjoy our show, give us a like, a share on your social channels, or maybe just tell your friends. These stories hopefully will inspire you to set off on your own bicycle adventure and maybe make the world feel a little bit smaller, one pedal stroke at a time. My name is Jared Kopak, and until next time, keep riding. Thanks for joining us on Bike Life. I'm Jerry Kopak, and I hope you enjoyed today's episode as much as we enjoyed sharing it with you. Please leave us a rating and review, or just tell your friends. This helps us reach more cyclists and hosts around the world. To learn more or become part of this amazing community, visit us at Warmshowers.org or follow us on Instagram at Warmshowers_org. If you'd like to be a guest on the show or have a question you'd like us to explore, email us at podcast@warmshowers.org.